globally. So, oh boy, we're going to have a lot of that. Hello, Sauce Fiends, and welcome back to Steve's Sauce Shack. I'm Steve, and today it's time for another sauce showdown. We'll be taking down the top 10 hot sauces in the USA for sales of the last few years. And we'll be pulling a Benjamin Button style. We'll start with the most recent and work our way back in time, all the way back to late 1800s. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. So Cholula was introduced in the United States around 1989. And this is a Mexican hot sauce, so a salsa picante style. This is going to be very similar to some of the other major ones in this category, such as Tapatio. So coming in at a 3, maybe pushing a 4 out of 10 on heat. Very tangy and very garlic forward. So pretty heavy on the vinegar. That's going to be a running theme in this list. These sauces do tend to be very vinegar forward. And as well, everything on this list, you're pretty much going to find sodium benzoate and xanthan gum, stabilizers and preservatives to keep them shelf stable for a long time. This whole category is generally what I consider kind of diner sauces, where you walk into any restaurant and you ask for hot sauce, odds are you're getting one of these 10 sauces. Now, of these sauces, this is the one that I have used the most in the past. I do like the flavor, but having kind of moved on to other more complex sauces, this definitely reads a little more one-note vinegar to me. The other flavors are still present. The garlic really leans forward on this flavor. And overall, perfectly decent sauce, great on eggs. This is one of the most common ones you'll find in any Mexican restaurants that's available. But we'll set that to the side for the moment, and we will move on back to 1980. So, Huy Fong Sriracha, 1980. It was introduced in the United States. Now, this was introduced in California, being sold out of the back of the van, as the story goes. And this is a bit of an outlier in this category. It's the only Sriracha or anything close to a Sriracha in this lineup. So I'll be keeping that in mind when I go to grade these at the end. But Srirachas tend to be a lot sweeter, a little more of a shake, a lot sweeter than some of these other sauces, which for the people who like Sriracha, that's generally why. For the people who don't, that's also generally why. Still contains peppers, garlic, vinegar, kind of the standard trifecta of ingredients there, but tends to be a lot sweeter. Now, I don't hold this particular brand in any special place in my heart, so to me, this is not an amazing Sriracha. It's fine. It's got a good flavor. It's, just like I said, sweet, garlic, vinegar, pretty tasty. However, it's a very simple flavor. For heat, I'm going to say a 3 out of 10, probably just below the Cholula for heat. And from there, we're going to keep marching on back to 1971. So Tapatio, introduced in 1971, I would say in the United States, but this is made in the United States. So this is actually a salsa picante style Mexican hot sauce made in California. So this is a much deeper pepper. And I don't mean black pepper, I mean the peppers that are being used in the sauce. But you taste so much more of the pepper being used in that. I honestly don't know if I've had Tapatio before. I assume I have. But off of that, I say this one probably in my own personal list in my head, this one just moved up a couple notches. Because I do like that it showcases that a little better than some of the others. Still, again, vinegar, garlic, kind of the common reads on those sauces, but really showcases the peppers a little better, I think. Heat, we're going still a 4 out of 10 on heat. Pushing a 5, but I think this is still kind of in the 4 territory. So very, very similar to Cholula in that respect. And we're going to keep moving right along to El Yucateco, this is another salsa picante, so Mexican hot sauce. This one, it's interesting how the perceptions of these things kind of bounces around, but generally this, as well as the Huy Fong, are kind of considered, well, Sriracha in general, are considered newcomers to the scene. And this is from, really, they were founded in 1968, depending on which account you're going with. So, sure, not worldwide distributed in 1968, but this sauce has been around for a hot minute, pun intended. But this one has been very, very popular over the last few years globally. So, oh boy, we're going to have a lot of that. In my defense, there's a little bubble over the top. Definitely looked like it had one of those regulated pour tops. Nope, but you know what? Waste not. We're just going to live our best life. It's the tomato in that that's really coming through for me. The habanero peppers, definitely. But the tomato really plays a big part. Really plays a big part in that flavor in a good way, in my mind. Now, vinegar plus tomato, more acidic theoretically, but this doesn't seem as painfully vinegar forward as other sauces. So really, really like this one. I've had some of their sauces before, not this traditional recipe of theirs, but very good. Heat-wise, I think this is still pretty squarely landing in that 4 out of 10. I am trying to account for the fact that I ate basically a whole teaspoon of it, but I believe that still lands pretty cleanly in the 4 out of 10 space. And from there, we're going to keep marching it back in time to 1954, where Valentina was founded in Mexico. So this is our final salsa picante for this particular lineup. And this is one I haven't tried before, so seen it on all the lists, see people rave about it online, just never got around to trying it until now. I'm more cautious about how we pour these things. You know what? Funny the little things, but it's one of the best pour tops I've seen in a hot sauce because it has that second hole to prevent the back pressure so that you can actually pour it out. Well, I could have waited longer before trying it, honestly. Very, very kind of a plain vinegar situation. Just tastes like water, chili pepper, vinegar, and salt. 3 out of 10 on heat. Nothing crazy with heat. And probably the simplest flavor of all the salsa picantes. Whereas El Yucateco, I'd say, was the most complex flavor. Cholula and Tapatio kind of in the middle in different ways. This is just very straightforward. And we're going to keep up with our backwards motion. And on we go to 1928, where our good friend Texas Pete was introduced. Now, Texas Pete, made in the United States. You could probably guess where it's from. And unless you know where it's from, you're probably wrong, because it's made in North Carolina. I do also love that in the lore of this particular sauce, the original naming convention was going to be Mexican Joe, but they wanted it to be a little more all-American than that. And that just tickles me. So we're going to get into it. This is another very standard garlic vinegar pepper situation, but we'll see how it balances relative to the others and where the heat's at. All right, so again, extremely vinegar forward, and a lot of that's just the Louisiana style of sauce, right? Which the majority of these fall into two categories, and that's Louisiana hot sauce and salsa picante, with Huy Fong kind of marching to the beat of his own drum over there. But this is a simpler in flavor than, I was going to say, than any of the ones that I've tried so far, but that's because it's the first of the Louisiana style, and that just marks the end of things. So, very first ingredient, vinegar, which I'm generally not a fan of it being that forward in the taste profile. Heat, really not there for me. That was probably a 2 out of 10 on heat. Now, moving on from Texas Pete, we're going back just another year to 28 of the 19th variety, to the original Louisiana hot sauce. This is the other one I don't believe that I've tried from this lineup. This one from Louisiana. I believe the last three are all the case as well. Pretty common for the Louisiana style hot sauces. Something you didn't know, now you know. So I get more of the pepper and Cajun seasoning in that than I do from Texas Pete. So I do like that it's a little more rounded of a flavor. It is very, very salty. So whatever you add that to, at least it reads as salty. Let me make sure it's even in the ingredients. Yes, it's in the ingredients. So whatever you add that to, if you're using this in any sort of recipe or on something that's already salty, that might be a little overwhelming depending on how much sodium intake you like. But fine. Again, maybe a 3 out of 10 on heat. These last few are not as terribly hot. And moving on back all the way to 1923. Happy 100-year anniversary crystal from Nolans, the Big Nol, as they call it. This is one that I believe I've only tried in diners, and I have not been to a diner in a while, so it's been a minute since I've had this. Party foul. So that strikes me as much more vinegar forward than the other two. However, it's a kind of a brighter vinegar experience, if that makes sense. It's not as heavily acidic in that experience. Still a relatively simple flavor evolution, a little simpler than the Louisiana, the original Louisiana, but I think I still prefer it a little bit over the Texas Pete. 2 out of 10 on heat. They're really not throwing heavy punches with how hot they are. And now all the way back to 1920, good old Frank's Red Hot. Now Frank's, you may recognize, it's kind of the quintessential wing sauce. And I'm not sure it's one that I've ever had. That's not true. I've had it before, but not generally just in sauce form. Usually has some sort of buffalo sauce situation. They do not make these tops easy to deal with necessarily. So I only have 2 more sauces with the chance to not say vinegar forward. It's not happening on this one. This one's pretty vinegar forward. And I do like, though, similar to the Tapatio, showcases the flavor of the peppers much better than the other ones do. I glanced at the recipe on the back, thinking it was the ingredients list, and saw cream cheese as the first thing listed. I was very concerned about my life for the next few hours. But there's no cream cheese in this. Well, I don't think so. But there you go. Aged cayenne red peppers right at the front, ahead of the vinegar. All is right in the world. Of this style of sauce so far, this is definitely my favorite. So cayenne pepper sauce, tasty. Again, these boy, they sure are saying it's halfway up the heat ranking, but that's another 3 out of 10 for me on heat. But pretty tasty. And now the big jump, 1920, all the way back to 1868. Good old Tabasco sauce. Probably the most ubiquitous hot sauce in the United States. Probably pretty decent representation worldwide as well. And then it's also what a lot of things will call on for hot sauces and recipes. So Bloody Mary, for example, lots of cocktails use Tabasco as kind of the basic hot sauce to use as part of those recipes. Let me give that a little more of a shake. It's not the color I was expecting. Nope, that's just how it looks. Way up. Oh man. Ugh. Yeah. I don't know why I find this so much less tolerable than most people seem to. This is like an offensive amount of vinegar. I am offended at the amount of vinegar in this. It's really just vinegar, red pepper, and salt. So, all right, they didn't water it down. Was that a mistake? Apparently not, considering how long running this brand is and how well it's done. But very much not for me. Just, I mean, it is just like drinking vinegar with a little bit of spice to it. Probably 2 out of 10 on heat. And I appreciate the simplicity if you're looking for something that doesn't have preservatives or stabilizers or anything like that. There's 3 whole ingredients in this, so there's that running for it. But for me, not going to rank high on my personal list. And that's all 10. We covered public math, 68 to, what is that going to be, 40, 160 years almost, 155. Fact check that. So we'll do a ranking on what I think is best, and then you can fight me in the comments. So for me, number 1 on this side, we'll work our way down that way. I'm going to have to do a little tie breaking here in my head with my mouth. Head's where I do most of my thinking. So we're going to circle back around on a couple of these. Rapid fire. I think vinegar-wise, that's just going to end up lower on the list for me. Now, PSA, if it's your first time trying to pour El Yucateco, chill. That's just almost got kind of the whole flavor profile of a salsa contained in the sauce. It's going to be difficult to top that, I think. These two might swap. These two aren't going to swap. Fighting for 7th, man. Not where you want to be. You know, I don't have a strong opinion on those, except for that sweet, sweet high-tech pour top. And there you have it. This is my top 10 ranking of the top 10 selling hot sauces in the United States. So, starting with El Yucateco, very, very good, well-rounded flavor. I think it's just a lot more in it than any of these other sauces. Frank's does a really good job of showcasing the actual pepper flavor. Tapatio, same thing, but from a salsa picante perspective. Cholula, significantly better than Valentina by my reckoning, but starting to get a little bit one note. And then we move on into some Louisiana style sauces. So this one, again, probably the most intricate flavor of those sauces and does a decent job of showcasing the pepper flavor. Crystal wasn't a big standout in any particular way to me. Gets the job done, I guess, but all of these are pretty mild on the heat scale. This Sriracha is fine. It's just a little one note for me. Leans real heavy on like a really sharp garlicky vinegar note. Valentina, man, that pour top. Texas Pete, Joe Mexico, Carmen San Diego, 9th place. And then good old Tabasco. You know, I know this is going to be controversial for some people, but I'm really not into it. Very, very vinegary. And I had high aspirations about saying that about every single sauce. I think I skipped it on maybe El Yucateco. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know what other sauces you think should go head to head. If you enjoyed this content, please check out my other videos. Consider subscribing. Thanks for stopping by the shack, and I will see you next time. Do I lick the table? Paper towels are so far away. I guess I'll just use my beautiful napkin.